$30 billion could vanish with a single phone call as Ryanair, the European low-cost titan, has threatened to cancel order for 330 Boeing 737 MAX jets, a shock big enough to rattle U.S. factories and hand China's Comac a major boost. The tension escalated when President Donald Trump erupted over fresh tariffs, while Brussels prepared a $35 billion counterstrike, pulling the world's cheapest airfares into the fight. On June 4th, Trump doubled Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum to a punishing 50%, metals that form the backbone of every 737 MAX wing, fuselage, and seat track. That single stroke instantly inflated Boeing's raw material bill for its narrow-body workhorse. Aviation analyst Richard Abu-Lafia noted that prices for castings, forgings, and titanium parts are already 40% higher than in 2021, warning that the latest tariff wave will make the squeeze disastrous for plane makers already battling inflation. Internal cost models show that a 50% levy on key inputs triggers a high single-digit rise in total build costs, erasing already thin margins on each MAX. The shock traveled across the Atlantic in seconds, where Brussels lined up a €21 billion retaliation list targeting finished aircraft spares and maintenance contracts if no deal appears by August 1st. Trade officials further revealed that a second €72 billion package is ready to launch if talks collapse, with draft documents listing aircraft engines, landing gear, and even seat belts, directly threatening Boeing exports in Europe's summer flight schedules. In Dublin, Ryanair read the warning on the invoice, and CEO Michael Oller fired off a letter to Congress pledging to cancel 330 MAX jets worth $30 billion if tariffs touch the final price, insisting in his memo, "We pay list, not tariffs." With razor-thin seat prices, any extra cost would go straight to passengers, and Ryanair has already told investors that fares this summer will rise in the mid to high-teen percentages even before new duties land. For a €59 Dublin-Barcelona ticket, that means at least €8 more each way. Analysts at Sirium Ascend warn that multi-stop trips will feel the hit even harder, as every connection compounds tariff costs and maintenance. Suppliers are also under pressure, with GE Aerospace and RTX expecting hundreds of millions of dollars in extra tariff expenses for 2025 and planning customer surcharges to claw it back. If those surcharges stick, every CFM-powered MAX destined for Europe will roll out costlier than Boeing's catalog ever promised. Now, Boeing faces a brutal choice: swallow millions in metal costs or risk losing its biggest low-cost customer. The first option drains cash, while the second opens the door for Airbus, or worse, China's Comac, to claim market share. Meanwhile, travelers who once enjoyed €29 flash sales may soon find that the budget in budget flying has been tariffed out of existence. With deadline day approaching, airline suppliers and passengers all share the same question: who blinks first, Washington or Brussels? Adding to the tension, Michael Oller has dangled a new bargaining chip, telling Reuters he would order China's C919 if it comes in 10 to 20% under Airbus. That single statement set off alarms on Capitol Hill, where Congressman Raja Krishnamurti warned the move would hand Beijing another strategic supply chain and threaten U.S. aviation security. The fight over ticket prices has now crossed into national security briefings, yet the sleek C919 still lacks the paperwork Ryanair needs. Europe's aviation watchdog has confirmed that the jet cannot be certified before 2028, with a possible slip to 2031. And without that ESA stamp, the aircraft cannot earn a single euro on Ryanair's core routes. Production presents another choke point as well, with Comac expected to complete only about 30 airframes in 2025, barely a week of Boeing 737 output, meaning delivery slots would arrive slower than a suitcase on Carousel 12. Even more limiting, the aircraft's heart still beats Western, as every C919 relies on GE Safran LEAP. 1C engines and avionics from Honeywell and Collins, all vulnerable to a single export control memo from Washington that could freeze parts and stall the line overnight. Switching fleets would also cost Ryanair real money. More than 95% of its 594 jet fleet are Boeing 737s, and pivoting to the C919 would demand new simulators, retrained crews, fresh spare parts depots, and rewritten manuals, expenses that'll claw back any headline discount long before passengers ever see a cheaper seat. CEO Michael Oller knows the math, and that is the point. Even a token trial order would shatter the Boeing Airbus price wall and force both giants to sharpen their pencils. Wall Street calls it leverage. Travelers may call it relief, but leverage cuts both ways. If certification drags or export controls tighten, Ryanair could be stuck with paper slots for jets it cannot fly. At that moment, the €59 ticket is no longer hostage to tariffs. It is hostage to geopolitics. In the next section, we will calculate exactly how much that hostage situation could cost Boeing and your wallet. Ryanair's 330 jet agreement carries a list value of about $40 billion, even after the deep discounts airlines typically secure. Analysts estimate that each 737 MAX earns Boeing roughly $1.5 million in operating profit based on an 8% margin, meaning scrapping the contract would erase nearly $5 billion in future earnings before aftermarket revenue is even counted. Spare parts and services alone generate about $15 billion annually for Boeing, or roughly 1/6 of total sales, and grounding 330 MAX aircraft permanently would wipe out an additional $2 billion in lifetime maintenance income. Investors have seen this script before. Boeing shares once plunged nearly 5 to 8% in a single day after midsummer's 737 incident in India, exposing fragile market confidence. Analysts now warn that a Ryanair exit could shave 5 to 10% off the stock, erasing as much as $12 billion in market value overnight. The shock would ripple through the supply chain, with Spirit Aerosystems already freezing overtime and hinting at layoffs as MAX production slows, while union leaders at smaller forges caution that deeper schedule cuts could move workers from overtime to pink slips within 6 weeks. Credit agencies are circling as well. Moody's pegs Boeing's debt near $57 billion and labels cash flow thin, leaving little room for another blow. Losing Ryanair would force every quarterly target, from free cash flow to output, into red ink revisions. Yet reputational damage may sting even more than the balance sheet, as airlines watching Michael Olares standoff are already asking, if Boeing can't hold its most loyal budget customer, who bails next? Sales teams at Airbus and Comac are expected to quote that question in every pitch deck they bring to airline boardrooms this year, while passengers continue scanning headlines, wondering when the MAX saga will finally end, prolonging a reputational drag that began in 2019. Boeing can slash prices, swallow tariffs, or lobby Washington, but each path bleeds either cash or confidence. If management missteps, layoffs could spread, suppliers could shutter, and ticket prices may creep higher as carriers absorb a fallout, a bad signal for the industry. If Boeing can't hold on to its core customer, who will be the next domino to fall? EasyJet has already locked in 157 new Airbus jets, crediting a rival quote for shaving the final price. The message is clear. Every European buyer now waives competing offer before signing. Lufthansa is playing the same hand, having slapped an environmental surcharge of €1 to €72 on every ticket, while telling suppliers deeper cuts are required. Air France analysts now run spreadsheets that park a what-if C919 column next to Airbus bids to keep both Western makers honest. Price pressure spreads fast when one low-cost giant threatens to defect, and procurement chiefs are now dropping Comac into every negotiation. Even though the Chinese jet cannot yet fly European routes, Beijing fuels the talk with fresh capacity pledges. Comac plans to build 50 C919s this year and ramp to 150 a year within 5 seasons. Even 10 trial frames would rupture Europe's long-standing price ceiling. IBA predicts the C919 could reach a low single-digit global share by 2030 and continue climbing as certifications fall. Airlines are now sketching 3 survival maps, with Scenario 1 assuming Washington cools the tariff war and metal duties drop, giving Boeing some breathing room. In Scenario 1, Washington cools the tariff war, metal duties drop, and discount fares limp along. Scenario 2 sees Boeing slashing sticker prices. Margins bleed, yet fleets remain Western and production lines continue humming. Scenario 3 envisions Comac winning European approval after 2028, climbing toward a 10 to 15% narrow-body share, turning the sky into a 3-pole battlefield where every bid round starts with a Chinese baseline. In every scenario, consumers are the first to pay if the conflict drags on, as tariffs or price wars flow directly into tickets, payrolls, and taxes. A 5% fare hike may sound small, but multiplied across Europe's 900 million annual passengers, the bill tops 4 billion euros. Suppliers wobble too. If Boeing or Airbus cut rates, parts makers face slimmer invoices or job losses. The pressure is already visible on the delivery scoreboard. Boeing handed over 348 aircraft in 2024, while Airbus delivered 766, marking the sixth straight year the U.S. giant trailed its European rival. Cirium puts Boeing's delivery share near 30%, the lowest since the pandemic, undermining the Made in USA image Washington uses to sway allies. When a European discounter shrugs off Boeing, airlines in Japan, South Korea, and the Gulf gain fresh reasons to consider Airbus or Comac, and each lost order drains dollars while eroding the FAA's rule-setting clout, clearing space for ESA and eventually China's CC. The more choices allies enjoy, the thinner America's diplomatic leverage becomes. With market share sliding, Boeing's lifeline depends first on reopening tariff talks with Brussels and locking a ceiling below the 10% threshold, a lower levy, as EU negotiators now float, which shave millions off every 737 invoice and help cool the fare spiral hammering low-cost travel. Second, Boeing needs to accelerate 737 MAX 10 production, with executives projecting the line could climb from 38 to 47 jets a month by late 2025 once regulators sign off. Achieving that tempo a year sooner would spread fixed costs wider and provide carriers a credible alternative to Airbus slots already sold out past 2030. Third, Boeing should secure a long-term sustainable aviation fuel pact with a major supplier. ExxonMobil has begun shipping certified SAF and plans to increase output to 3,000 barrels a day in France by 2025. A headline like "Boeing Jets Fly on ExxonMobil Green Fuel" could attract eco-minded airlines and blunt Airbus's emissions edge. The clock is loud, and industry insiders issue a stark warning. If Boeing has not rebuilt confidence by the Paris Air Show in June 2027, its window to regain 40% of the global market will slam shut, by which time Airbus and Comac could have airlines locked into delivery slots for the next decade. Would you pay an extra $20 per trip to protect American aerospace jobs? Or if a Comac ticket comes in 15% cheaper, would you still choose the Stars and Stripes tail or pocket the discount? $30 billion, one angry letter, and a Chinese wild card have shaken the runway. Ryanair's threat leaves Boeing off balance. Washington's tariffs cut deep, and Comac circles for its first European prey. The next move could either freeze ticket prices or send them soaring past clouds. So, is Oler bluffing for a bulk discount, or are we witnessing the first shock wave of a three-pole sky?